Welcome to the Lights Out Podcast, special edition, another member of Team Quest. We've got Matt the Law Lindland with us. Matt, thank you so much for joining us.
You bet, man. You say another member. Who else did you have on recently?
We had Dan Henderson recently.
Oh, yeah. Legend.
Oh, dude, if you guys look at your team and what you were doing, arguably the greatest team in the world at that point.
Oh,
at one
sure.
point, I should say.
Sure, yeah. We kept, you just put, the three of us, Randy and Dan and myself, but then we started training up a lot of really tough young guys that needed martial arts in their lives. Chris Lebans and Ed Hermans and, those type of guys. They really needed an outlet for, their energy that they had.
Ryan Schultz as well. That's another guy I think is
Horwich. I mean, the list goes on and on.
So Matt Horwich and yourself had a special relationship. How would you, because we also had him on as well in the past, how would you describe how you guys met and how you became so close?
I mean, Matt and I just met from him wanting to train martial arts, came into my gym, and I actually got to know his mom real well, and his mom and my daughter were very close. They rode horses together a lot and trained animals and did a lot of horse training together. So we had a really a good relationship with the family as well. Yeah, but I think I got a very special place in my heart for Matt, for all my guys, honestly. I don't know if other than my family was very close to his mom. We had a really great relationship, but I don't know if it was any deeper than a lot of my other athletes. Okay. I think when you're coaching athletes, it's really critical that you connect with them and you build those relationships, because you can't correct guys unless you connect, unless you have that relationship and that foundation where they trust you and they believe in what you're going to say, and they're going to listen to you a lot more.
Well, Horwich is a special case. Like, I think a lot of people, they have issues connecting with him out of fear, probably more often than not. But you two,
he's a sweet man. Loves to compete. He's really dedicated to his craft, and he loves to train as much as he does compete.
Yeah.
The law. There it is.
There you are, brother. Hey, good to see you, Chris.
Hey, good to see you. How the heck you doing? Looks fantastic there.
Oh, buddy, I'm back in Oregon. I was telling Mike, he goes, I couldn't get a hold of you. I was like, brother, I'm on my tractor all day. I was logging and doing some tractor work. So
that's awesome, man. I love hearing that. Just having a good time then, right?
Absolutely. I took another day off the gym. I didn't know how many people were going to show up today anyway, so I figured, take one more day break for the holidays, spend some time with the family, and right now it's my wife and I. Our kids have all launched, so.
Hey man, I'm in the same boat pretty much. I got one kid here out of my four that is actually still here, but yeah, most of them are gone, man. It's different. So it's weird. You spend the whole time fighting, being so busy, and all of a sudden now you're like, now what? People are gone.
No, I can keep busy out here though. I got 28 acres out on the coast. We're in the mountains. I'm 20 minutes from the coast, but
man,
I'm in the mountains in Oregon right on the Columbia River.
How many people you have at the gym there?
We're right around 200 now. When I left to take the job in Colorado, I had about 300 members and was like, you know what, I think I can take on this challenge of coaching the U.S. Olympic team. I spent 2 quads there, but it was definitely time to get back here. My numbers had gone down quite a bit without me there. COVID affected gyms in Oregon a lot. I'm in Portland, Oregon, man, one of the most liberal epicenters of the country.
Yeah,
it's tough out here.
Man.
Well, what do you mean? They
I'd
make
go
things
nuts.
so easy. They make things so easy for everyone. I'm
Oh
sorry.
man, brutal. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
the only place that taxes you higher is New York City.
Oh
So-
man. Wow.
Well, at least their voices are being
a lot of
heard.
fight promotions out here too. I was running an organization called Sport Fight until the state decided between the state and the city, they wanted 12% of my gross revenue. It was just like, I can't do it anymore. Like,
Wow.
you can't keep taking, especially when you're talking gross. It's like, wait a minute, before I get paid or pay any of my athletes, the state and the city wants their share. It's like, can't do it anymore.
Have you thought about going someplace else and putting on fights?
I did fights in one in Reno, Nevada, and lost my ass. Long story. I went on somebody else's turf. You know what I mean? And
Yep.
there was a lot of backstabbing, and I guess I didn't realize there was so much politics involved in that, and it was King of the Cage and their kind of turf. But that was actually one of our best fights. I mean, I had Jeremy Horn, I had Dennis Hallman, I had Chael Sonnen. Because all my fighters got pulled off my card, so I was calling in some favors. Hey, man, and then on top of that, that was tough. Did one in Denver one time, break even show, and when you put 3 months of work into a show and you break even, it's hard, man. It's traveling and going into new markets is very difficult. So I don't know. I'm just really enjoying coaching. I'm working with a lot of youth right now. I'm getting a nonprofit fired up to help support some of our kids here in the area we live in is Rockwood. It's a neighborhood in Portland, and it's one of the most diverse neighborhoods, but it's also 97% poverty. And we've been able to craft a living out of this. 97. I know, isn't that crazy?
Man, that's nuts.
That sounds like Chicago.
And going for $400,000. It's nuts. So there's a lot of kids that really need martial arts in their lives and did it, just discipline and structure. So we're trying to get some money raised to do that. And the best thing to do was, fire up a nonprofit and get that going and, support these kids in our community. I'm going to take on some more space as well. So there's a school right behind me that's a charter school, and they have some extra space. I'm going to have to definitely invest some money to, rehab the space and make it, doesn't have a fire exit and egress for fire. And, that. How important that's
I got a little fire experience. Hey, Mike, are we recording this or do we?
Yeah, dude, we've already started, dude. Yeah, absolutely.
Just making sure, man, because this is he's throwing out gems. I'm making sure.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Okay, no, but man, that's all unbelievable, man. And Matt, just like me, I've got involved with this sport for so long. When you're done fighting, doing whatever, it's like I got all this knowledge. It's a waste of my time, energy, effort if I don't pass it on. So you're doing that. You're sharing it to these next people, like you're saying. I helped start a gym here in Indianapolis, and it was free to all kids, because these are the kids who need it. I mean, it's not just about it's actually going to affect their lives and change their lives. And me and Mike talk all the time about the number of people, this sport has literally saved their life. You know what I mean? And that's what you're doing. You're passing it on. I just want to thank you for what you're doing, especially a place with 97% poverty. Those people, this is their only outlet, really, and you're doing that for them. So thank you.
Well, yeah, I appreciate it. But like you said, it's something I feel like I have the knowledge. I enjoy teaching. I enjoy impacting these kids' life. And and when I do that, sometimes I'll get the opportunity to share the gospel with some of these kids and maybe bring somebody to Jesus and just change their lives like you talked about in more than one way.
Loving it.
Chris, the crazy thing about Matt is, Olympic silver medalist, obviously one of the world's greatest fighters. Matt, how old were you when you first started wrestling?
When I got to high school, my freshman year.
Wow.
I did in junior high. They had what they called wrestling wrestling season, but it was 4 weeks long. And I think we probably got about 8 matches in those 4 weeks. And it was like something you did after school for 4 weeks. And, and I did it in 7th grade and I did it in the 8th grade, and never even thought about it. Oh, it was fun hanging out with my buddies. And, and some of the older high school kids that I grew up around, I was real rural. So, my neighbors were 5-6 miles away kind of thing. But, my guys that I knew in the community, they'd come in and help, coach it. But it was fun. Didn't even think anything about it. I was an equestrian athlete growing up my whole life. And when I got to high school, my mom told me that I couldn't chase that dream of getting on riding a horse in the Olympic Games. So find a new sport.
Were you dominant at wrestling right away, or was it not the case?
Not at all the case. I went my first year in high school. I had a pretty decent season, but I was in a small weight class with all, freshmen, sophomores. I didn't have a lot of seniors at 100 pounds, And so by my junior and senior year, I started placing in our state tournaments. But the first tournament I went to outside of high school was our state styling. So, and I came home with an 0-8 record, and I figured I gotta figure out where I gotta go. And I started doing a little research who all was on those podiums, and ended up at a club. And it was one of the best clubs in the country. We had multiple guys making world teams, Olympic teams out of that club. The 1984 Olympic coach, Pavel Kotzen, was running the Greco program there. So I got high level coaching right away. And that was one of the things that set me up for success. Was I found a really good club and had high level coaching. But coming out of high school, I still wasn't good enough to get recruited, or go to even a D2, D3 program. So I ended up going to the junior college right in my hometown, and ended up winning the national title my second year there.
Wait. Let me just so everyone can quantify this. You don't even qualify really. You're not even on the podium senior year, and you make the Olympic team. That's correct? That's what you said, correct?
Wow. Yeah. Was it, man? I mean, so you go to junior college. Is that really when you start dialing in and understood what the work ethic it took, or how did that transition?
I think I knew the work ethic that it took. I mean, I grew up pretty rural, and I was working all summer and stuff. Even when I went to junior college, Chris, we had what trimesters instead of semesters. So we had fall, winter, spring, and I ended up having to take off the spring semesters so I could pay for college, because I wasn't good enough to receive a scholarship or anything. So I worked in the sawmills and I packed Todd, and so I knew how to work hard. That wasn't. It was just the experience. I hadn't been doing it long enough, and a lot of these guys that end up going Division I, they've been wrestling since they were 5-6 years old.
Yeah.
And I was just trying to catch up with these athletes. But I did win a junior college national title and got recruited to a lot of universities. It was that was a fun time. I went to Penn State, I went to Oklahoma, went to Nebraska, and Campbell out in North Carolina. And then I visited one D2 program because they had a really high level Greco-Roman guy there that was a coach. And I probably would have taken that path had he recruited me a little different. But if I was going to wrestle Division II, it needed to be like, hey, we're just going to focus on Greco-Roman wrestling. You can show up at the nationals and compete. But when you go D1, I mean, it's all about folk style, so. But I think that was the model, and I think that was the thinking, because nobody had ever in America had said, you know what, I'm going to skip the folk style route and I'm just going to wrestle Greco-Roman, train for the Olympics. But when I got the job as the national coach, that was kind of the route I started going. I started picking up kids that were 15, 16, saying, hey, let's just wrestle Greco. And I had 2 of them, 19 years old, win national titles this year. 2 19-year-old kids winning the national titles. They're in the finals to make world teams, but that's really what it's going to take. I mean, people talk about, wrestling's wrestling. Yes. And jujitsu and no-gi or no-gi, but there's different. It's hard to train for both. Even when you watch the best no-gi grapplers nowadays, they're not doing both gi and no-gi. They're specializing earlier, and that's really what you got to do to have success at the Olympic level nowadays, because it's getting tougher. When I competed in the Olympics, there was 8 weight classes, and there was 20 qualifiers. Now there are 6 weight classes and 16 qualifiers per weight class. It's gotten so tough. I mean,
man, and I totally agree with what you're saying. We were talking about, like, most of those other countries, especially Eastern Bloc, just all over the place, they don't do freestyle, or they don't do folk style wrestling. You know what I mean? So it's a total different style. That's all they're preparing for years and years and years. How are we going to catch up? You know what I mean? Like, all we do in high school and college is prepare for one style. The other one's a secondary. It's very difficult to catch up. And you can even tell, in my opinion, in MMA, the guys who are better at submission usually and just slicker, I feel like they just have a more of a folk style grappling, because you're used to getting up. You're used to moving on. In freestyle or Greco, you just sit there and then stand you up in a few seconds. So I just think I can tell the difference, kind of.
Yeah, no, the folk style is definitely about control and pressure and holding people down on the mat. And the international styles are completely about risk.
Yeah.
Is being willing to take risks.
It's even like, I look at the Greco style as almost like the lawyer of the wrestlers, because they've got to think about the rules. They got to think about angles. And it's more than just, let me get this takedown. Let me get this takedown. It's a different type of math equation.
It certainly is a different sport.
Yeah.
I've done them all. I've done every discipline you can do in wrestling, and had pretty good success at all of them. I won 2 national titles in freestyle and a Pan American championship, a gold medal. And that was when I had to decide, hey, I can't chase two rabbits. I'm going to have to pick Greco or freestyle. And I just beat Alexi Rodriguez in the Pan Ams that year. And I went to the US Opens and said, whatever style I do best in, I think that's the one I'm going to have to pick. And I ran into Dave Lee in the quarterfinals. I hit him with 2 4-point arm throws. I was up 8-0, and this guy got on top. He hit me with, he trained with Dave Schultz, and he hit me with that Dave Schultz leg Turk, that bow and arrow, where he just put my foot and my head together. We just kept going 2, 2, 2.
Yeah. Wow.
And I was in the semis in Greco, so I ended up going that route. Honestly, I really enjoyed both disciplines a lot, but ultimately had to pick one. I ran into that same scenario in '97, Chris, when I was wrestling and I was training for the Olympics. I just missed the Olympic team in ` by 1 point. Me and Gordy wrestled each other, and he scored a 2-point gut wrench. I scored a 1 point. They had the rules back then when if you went hand to hand, it was only 1 point.
I remember that. Yeah.
And we took that one out, but if you went hand to hand and he went hand to hand and I touched an elbow, and that was the difference, 1 point. But in '97, I saw Randy and Dan taking these fights and rings and stuff. And I was like, man, I'm going to try that. I think I could do pretty good at that. And I took 3 fights, and '97, I was like, man, this is going to be a lot of fun, but I'm going to have to really focus on wrestling for the next 3 years to just to make that team, let alone get on the podium. So
when you started fighting, you still plan on just doing wrestling? You just wanted to make some money, or you just thought it looked fun, or why did you start fighting?
Well, all of the above. It looked like a hell of a lot of fun. It looked like it was a way I could use my skill set to make some money.
Yeah,
and definitely did. I mean, some of those early fights, guys are still getting paid less than that in their first fight nowadays.
Yep.
I mean, they threw $4 or $5 grand at me to to come show up for one fight. I was like, yeah, I'll do that.
Chris,
Now-
wait. I got to hit this. His wrestling career, there's so much in there. And here's a little sample. 1994 Karelin Cup. You were in Russia wrestling. Is there anything that was significant that took place in that tournament?
Well, I mean, I almost got killed by the Mafia that tournament.
How'd that happen?
I broke a kid's thumb for the bronze medal. I ran a half Nelson. I remember watching the film later. My buddy goes, "Is that a half Nelson?" He's like, "Yeah, that's a half." How the hell do you turn him with a half Nelson?
Yeah.
And well, because on the first side I snapped his thumb. I mean, I was looking for a little compliance with the pain, but I felt it literally snap. And he was like, brought his elbow in, and I just ran a half Nelson, turned the kid, and and next thing you know, I mean, I got guys trying to kill me over there in Russia, and I got out of there.
How'd you make it out, man? Jeez.
Ended up making friends, actually. Well, Karelin was like, "Hey, these are my guests, and you got to settle down." So, yeah, it was interesting because we were the only Americans that competed in there. It was Randy, myself, Matt Gaffari, Chris Saba, Dan Henderson, or Dan Niebuhr. Dan Henderson did not go to this tournament, so nobody had wrestled Karelin. The guy, I mean, you remember, guys would just roll over. He'd start that reverse lift. They'd like, pin me. I don't want to get thrown on my head. And so Matt would wrestle him every time. Quarry gave him a match every time. I mean, he never beat him, but he went out and competed with him super hard.
Yeah.
And so they told him, I need somebody to come over here that's going to actually fight me in the finals. And he negotiated. He goes, well, if you want me to come, you got to fly my buddies over. And so Randy and myself and Dan Niebuhr and Chris Saba, we all went over on this trip, and it was epic. It was an unbelievable experience to get to go there. It was a long damn flight though. Just from Moscow, it was like 8 hours to get to Novosibirsk.
Oh man.
You land in Moscow and you still got 8 hours.
No.
Oh, God. So, how was Karelin to deal with?
He's a gentleman. He's a statesman. He's an absolute statesman. Now, does he like to party? Did he show up and, when we were getting flights out in the morning, at 4 a.m, heading to the airport, was he just coming back to hotels and stuff? Yeah. After a tournament, but he was an absolute gentleman, and he was a statesman. He's in their parliament now. I mean, the guy's a legend.
How ugly was it? Like, how close were you to having issues there?
Probably a little closer than I realize now, but spending time in Eastern Europe and especially in former Russia, right after the fall of the Soviet Union, I mean, it was really, banditos were running everything, but the banditos were the wrestlers. I mean, they were the toughest guys in the country, the guys that could run shit. And those are the guys that ran things. So you didn't have a whole lot of problem when you were over there. It was like, if you're a wrestler, you're kind of same thing, traveling to Iran, I mean, they love wrestling in Iran, and you're not going to have any troubles. The wrestling world really respects the sport of wrestling a lot.
You know what I love about wrestling and fighting? I feel like whenever you have a sport like that, I feel like it unites people together. Like all the fighters, they don't care about, your religion, your political views. It's all you're a wrestler, that's it, or a fighter. It's like sports unites people. Politics divides them. They divide people up and make it. But sports always bring people together. You could have, a guy from Iran going against a different Muslim from a different country, and a Jewish guy and a Christian, and they can all be working out together, no problems. It is the sport. That's all you care about. Is this guy's a good person? He's helping me out. He's a hard competitor. That's it. That's all. It brings people together. I love it.
Yeah, Mike and I were talking early right before you jumped on about, coaching and being able to connect with your athletes before you have opportunity to correct them and fix mistakes, is you have to have this relationship. But the building a relationship with another high level athlete, especially in combat sports, I think there's a lot of mutual respect immediately, because we know what we all go through, the training, the work that's put into it, the dedication, the discipline, that goes into that. Everybody respects that. I mean, across the world, wrestling is known for, strong athletic men that, are character, high character individuals. It's pretty hard to be successful at wrestling if you don't have a lot of the groundedness that it takes. You got to be pretty grounded in your life to be successful at a sport so difficult as martial arts and wrestling.
Yeah. Even if you're a flawed person, there's still something that's in you that you have that you can't do if you're just a total shitbag to be good at wrestling. Yeah, it's true.
We're all flawed. For sure.
Now, Mike, he was talking about some of his early fights. You want to walk us through those, Mike? Because I want to hear about these, Mike. And I know you did all your research.
100%, man. Like I said, when we started this, I'm mentally friggin' ill. I've got about 15 pages of notes. Before that, you mentioned U.S. Nationals. In the year 2000, when you won the Nationals, would you let everybody know what you had to do in order to even make weight?
The U.S. Open, to make weight at the U.S. Open?
With the 2000,
yeah. You're gonna have to remind me of that story. It might be a different one.
All right. So the 2000 U.S. National Championships was the one year that they made you weigh in with your singlet on.
Oh, okay. I don't remember that. That's probably when it started. Was in 2000, probably.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember what you did? Do you want me to just keep going? Maybe I'm off on this. Okay.
I mean, I get hit in the head for a living, Mike.
So from what I understand, you got 2 hours to make weight. They got clocks over the scales. You can weigh in 30,000 times. It doesn't matter, but you got to make weight within this 2 hour period. You couldn't make weight, and you had tried 3 different times. You were at the scale with your singlet. You said, fuck it. There's about 10 seconds, but in less than 30 seconds left. Joe Warren standing next to you, who's 2 weight classes underneath you. You said, give me your singlet. You put his singlet on and you made weight.
I honestly, I probably did something like that. I don't, that shit doesn't. I mean, I had to make weight. I don't know.
Hey, did Joe Warren tell you that story there, Mike?
I think I heard. I think I saw that in YouTube comments on some of your videos.
Ask Joe Warren; he's good.
That's funny. I see Joe quite a bit. He's doing a lot of wrestling coaching nowadays. I actually just ran into him in Europe about 3 weeks ago.
Really?
So, yeah.
He's a wild man. I like Joe.
Joe never changes.
No. What about Mark Schultz?
You want to know a Mark Schultz story? I told you I started wrestling in high school. We had it in gym class. And then they lied to me and said, hey, you're really good. You should go out for the team. What I didn't realize was the whole reason they had it in gym class was to recruit kids to come out for the team. And they're like, man, you're pretty good at that. You should come out. I said, all right, I'll give it a shot. So I joined the team. And then 2 weeks into the season, there was a Mark Schultz clinic down in Cottage Grove, down by Eugene. And so I drove like 3 hours to get down to this clinic. And that son of a bitch, he is crazy. He was talking about, he was telling the story. And he goes, then I had this Turk's arm. He freaking did a Kimura on, you probably remember this. The guy getting on a single, he reaches outside, locks up a Kimura, throws the guy, breaks his freaking shoulder. And he's telling the story. And we're all like high school kids. and he's just like mother effer and this and that. And I was just like blown away. But I was like, oh, you can fuck dudes up in this sport. Okay. Like I'm all about that.
Man, I remember they kind of changed the rules because of him doing that Kimura lock and tearing people's shoulders up. I'd always try and, when I was coaching wrestling, trying to get people to do that, but not the same way, to pull it out of the way, just kind of push them over like that. And the referee was like, you cannot bring it up. And they brought up the Schultz rule because he used to do that and tore people's arms up. So yeah, that's crazy.
Well, Dave, they changed some rules on him because he had that nasty front headlock. Dave Schultz had that nasty front headlock, and they put in a bunch of rules. You couldn't do a front headlock like Dave Schultz anymore.
Because people were passing out.
Yeah. They were not going to unconscious. The Schultz brothers were like attorneys. Like they passed the rule where you couldn't clasp your hands like behind the person's back, and then Dave would be like, "Well, I'm grabbing my wrist. I'm not grabbing my hands. I'm grabbing my wrist." Like those attorneys, they came up with that wrestling rule book. They were afraid of the Schultz brothers.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, they were afraid of the.
Yeah, Dave was a great guy. Mark's a good man too. He's down in Oregon. He's about 5 hours south of me.
Nice.
Yeah,
I'm in the northern corner, and he's in the southern corner of the state.
February 24th, 1997, you fought in the World Fighting Federation. Karo Devatian was your first opponent. What do you recall about
this? Story about this fight?
Yeah.
Okay, it's my first fight. I'm leaving. I get home. I get a change of clothes. I got a flight out of Lincoln to Havana. I'm competing in the tournament in Havana, and so I get in the ring, and I get on top of this guy. I mean, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I know I need to get my hands on him. I need to get a hold of this guy, throw him on the mat. I throw him on the ground. I get on top, what is now known as the mount position. I just got on top, and I started punching and elbowing and hammer fisting this guy. Referee stops the fight. They're like, done. Fight's over. I go over to my corner. Rico Chiapparelli's over there. And the other guy starts complaining. He's like, no way, dude. I wasn't tapping. He's like, oh, I know, but this is the rules. Like, if you can't protect yourself, we got to stop the fight. I said, give him another shot. Let's do this again. And Rico's like, what the hell are you doing, dude? Like, you're getting paid. Like, let's go home.
You won. Yeah.
And I'm like, come on, let's start it over. We touch it up, do it again. Second time he tapped.
Yeah.
Now, when you're getting ready to do these fights, are you doing any stand-up training? Or are you just like, I'm gonna go wrestle this guy and beat him up? Are you trying to?
Yeah, I found a boxing gym about 30 minutes from Lincoln, Nebraska. Yeah, I mean, barely. I was.
Now, you talked about Randy. You saw Randy and them do this. Did you talk to Randy and work out with him or anything to get better?
I was living in Lincoln, Nebraska. That was my home base. That's where I was coaching the University of Nebraska. I was training there. But yeah, I gave these guys a call. He goes, call Rico. He'll get you a fight. Okay, let's do this.
All right. Nice.
What was your experience like with Rico Chiapparelli?
Great. I mean, I've known him for years. Known Rico for years. He's a great guy. I've never had any issues with him. Why ask?
Were you part of Raw?
Yeah. I was part of Raw at the very beginning, and like for those 3 fights.
Okay, so all right, were you there when Hickson and Rico grappled?
No, I never trained with them or any of that stuff. I was in Nebraska doing all my training and working, living, raising kids.
Your daughter was a standout wrestler too.
No, she never wrestled. She did a lot of grappling stuff.
Was it grappling? Okay.
Yeah, just grappling. She actually had two modified MMA fights when she was a kid. Yeah. So I mean, both my kids trained all the time. My son just started working for me, and he's back in the gym training again. So that's cool.
You had mentioned that you went to Cuba right around that time. Was that with I think his name was Asgwe, Louis Asgwe?
Asgwe.
Asgwe.
Asgwe, yeah.
Did you
Yeah,
almost
I
get into a
probably
fist fight?
lost that tournament.
So
I actually go ahead.
He's a two-time gold medalist. You guys met a few times. The rumor was that you guys
number of times. We met a number of times.
okay.
And he was one of the best in history, and he was at my weight class. And I ended up beating him once in '96, right after the Olympics. There was a tournament called the World Cup, and that's a team competition. It was about a month after the Olympics. So I mean, this guy's been preparing, grinding, just got his gold medal at the Olympics, and I ended up wrestling him. And I don't think he was, as focused on that match as I was, but I ended up getting a win. Didn't beat him again for 4 years. And in the '99 Pan American Games, I ended up beating him really bad. I ended up, I think I beat him by like 8 points, and it was a 10-point tech back then. Yeah, I had a really nice 5-point lift on him. And then he ended up dropping down a weight category. He ended up going down to 68 kilos, won his second Olympics at 68. And to qualify the weight class, I had to beat his backup, who was just a world champion, Mr. Almanza. He's sitting bench behind a 2-time Olympic champion and multi-time world medalist, but he was a world champion himself. And that was the guy I had to beat to qualify the weight class for the United States in 2000.
Did you almost get into a fist fight with him?
With a squeak?
Yeah.
Yeah, I knocked his teeth out in a match. And they weren't too happy about that.
The Cuban dental isn't the best from what I understand.
Yeah. So I'm in Puerto Rico, and he gets this little kid to translate, and he's like, "What the hell, dude? You knocked my teeth out. Like, this is bullshit. We're not fighting. You want to fight? We can fight." And I was like, "You want to fight?" And he's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Okay." I set my bag down. I'm like, "Let's go." He's like, No. I don't want to really fight you. I just don't want my teeth knocked out in a wrestling match." And I'm like, "Okay, well," shake his hand, pick up my bag, and went back to the hotel. See, you don't understand. I like to fight. That's why I was successful. I enjoy fighting.
Chris and Matt, I'm saying this with the utmost respect here. I mean, this guy is a prick on the wrestling mat. He is the ultimate winner, doesn't want to lose. Like, sometimes like he's the type of guy that'll sit next to somebody in a car for 2 hours after making them incredibly uncomfortable and not giving a single shit. It's amazing to watch his matches. Any disagreement on that, Matt?
I had a philosophy, and I've tried to pass this on to students of mine. And I say, if you can't beat him, at least make it the most miserable experience that he doesn't want to do this again. So there's like something in your mind that's like, I know I beat that guy, but I don't want to wrestle him again. I do against that guy again. That was too tough. And so I mean, that's
I love that.
That's kind of the way to go. I mean, that was my mentality on that.
That's always been my philosophy with fighting, Mike. Is like, you might win, but I want people to be like, damn, I don't ever want to do that again, because I can see that not going my way. I didn't like it. You know what I mean? You want them to not like it. And because a lot of guys, you are going to have to fight twice or wrestle twice. And you want them going into that next match being like, damn, you know what I mean? I don't want to go against this guy. You're right, 100%.
Well, and like knocking a guy's teeth out, the next time I got on the mat with him was the Pan Am Games, which I won. And it was kind of like, well, I mean, this is going to be shitty. So you got it's a big mental game. Wrestling and fighting. There's a lot of mental stuff going on there, how you prepare, how you compete.
Okay, I think one of the most misunderstood things about your wrestling career is the lawsuit for the 2000 Olympics. I watched it. I did a ton of research on it. You couldn't have been more in the right in regards to it. And suing to get on the Olympic team, it happens about a dozen times every single Olympics.
Well, what happened was I was denied my due process. They write the rules. I had to follow the rules, but our organization decided they were above the law, and they were scofflaws. There was a process in place. It would have been really simple. When I said, "Hey, I want to protest the match," and they said, "No, we're not going to let you." I said, "No, I filed the paperwork and I've paid the fee." They said, "No, it's judgment. You can't, we're not going to watch the film." I said, "No, you misapplied the rules. You need to watch the film to show how you misapplied the rules." They said, "Oh, it's a judgment." Well, there's no provision in there for judgment anyway. And regardless, it wasn't a judgment call. They misapplied the rules. And so they denied me due process. Then we go to sport committee. They started pulling members off the sport committee that may have voted in my favor. I said,
Wow.
You can't take people off the committee. They said, "Oh, we're going to, because these guys, they may have bias." I said, "Well, that's why you have a committee, is because we all have bias. You can't do that." I go to arbitration. The arbitrator says, "Re-wrestle the match." I re-wrestle the match, beat the guy 9-0.
Oh,
And 9-0. 9-0.
wow.
And
Well, if I may interject, along this time, Chris, what's incredible is Dan Chandler, the coach at that time, publicly, this is not private, publicly stated it was the worst officiated match he had ever seen in his entire life.
Wow, it's huge.
But then
true.
they want the Keith Siraki was his name. They wanted to keep him on even though after the judge ruled in your favor. What was the reason? Like, why did he have so much pull to make this so difficult?
He was part of the Army world-class athlete program, and they put a lot of money into their program. They also put a lot of money into USA Wrestling, and they didn't have an athlete on the team, and they wanted somebody on the team from WCAP. They figured they'd get somebody.
I mean, you would think they would want to put a guy, if you beat him 9-0 or 9-1, you think they're going to want the guy who's better out there. You know what I mean? You want the guy who's going to win.
I just beat the Olympic champion in the Pan Am Games.
Yeah.
Beat the world champion to qualify the weight class. This guy couldn't qualify the weight class. He would have never even qualified us for the United. He would have never qualified the weight class.
Chris, this is how bogus it is.
4 years later, he had a chance to do it. I retired and he had a chance to do it, and he didn't qualify the weight class in 2004.
Well, here, let's. What was your overall record against him whenever you guys wrestled? From your hip.
Well, going into that match, it was I had 13 wins. Now, he had a win back in like 94, and probably another one somewhere along there. I lost to him. I know in 94 I lost to him because that was the tournament where I lost to Dave Lee in freestyle. And I came back, I lost to Gordy Morgan, and then I wrestled Keith on the backside for a placing there. But going into that match, I had 13 wins in a row.
Okay.
Wow.
And they were dominant wins. And then on top of that, okay. Did you bite him?
Yes.
Did you bite him in that match? In any of your matches?
No, I never bit nobody.
Man, bro, there's a freaking YouTube video on it that I believe you. First off, I think you're not lying to me, but god damn, does that YouTube video look incriminating?
Yeah, I mean here's the deal. That's illegal. Like there's being physical, there's being rough, and there's gray area. Now there's also illegal moves. If that was an illegal move, the officials would have had to disqualify me from the match.
How
Yeah.
uncomfortable was it between you two after all this was going on? Did you guys ever have conversations, or was it you go one way, he goes the other?
I mean, no, I mean, we weren't tight before, like super tight. But no, I don't know. I wasn't, you go that way, whatever. It was, it wasn't his deal. I mean, he's fighting to get on a team too. I mean, he wanted to make an Olympic team. He wanted to compete. I mean, I understand, why he would push it, and want to get there.
Your attorney, Steven Thompson.
Great guy.
Man, that guy is a savage.
Yeah, he's very good at his job.
You guys really connected. How did you two meet?
Through a mutual friend. His sister worked at the same law firm. She knew a guy that did sports law. And really what Steve had done was like some doping cases. I don't think he realized what he was in for.
No, he handled a couple of your issues, if I'm correct.
And you know what? He was actually my attorney. I managed myself when I was a fighter too, and he was my attorney the whole time. So Steve and I stayed very close. He's actually dealing with some cancer stuff right now. He's getting better. He's getting worse. It's kind of been up and down, last 6 years, man. It's been tough.
Chris, the Army, I believe, and I've got no proof of this, but my belief is that they had a PR campaign specifically against Matt in regards to the Olympics. Like, they would always mention the lawsuit, and man, we're really surprised he's in his gold medal match. We didn't think he had anything. He didn't have the ability to even place in this tournament. Like, they really went out of their way to kind of dump on you, which I think
that's weird, because I mean, I was going up to the games, man. I was right there. I made it to the semifinals the year before in 98 and 99. Beat the returning world champion with a torn pronator's tear. I tore my arm in the first match against Luka, and he went on to win the worlds that year. Ended up wrestling Basida from Kazakhstan in the pool system this year. It was a weird year. They switched the rules. It was a pool system. You had 3 guys in your pool. If you beat 2 of the 3, you moved on to the next round. Yeah, it was interesting, but no, I don't know why that would have been, because I mean, at that point I was starting to establish myself as one of the most dominant guys in that weight class. But it was actually the wrong weight class for me. I really should have been up one weight class. Wow. But the problem was it was like I've beaten everybody. I've been chasing these guys since 96. I've been chasing every one of these guys, figuring out how to beat them. And I didn't want to move up a weight class, even though I'd kind of grown out of the weight class. I didn't want to move up at that time. I retired after the Olympics, decided I was just going to start fighting. But then I wanted to wrestle in the World Championships in 01, Mike, and we're going to be in New York City. And as I was getting ready for final acclimation, I was in Colorado Springs. We were flying out in like 3 days. They blew up the World Trade Centers. Oh, yeah. I was getting ready to go wrestle in the World Championships, and that shit happened. Wow. So I was stuck in Colorado for another almost 2 weeks. Like, I couldn't get anywhere. So
you were in your 76 kilogram Greco-Roman match against Marot Kardonov. How would you describe that match?
Freaking tough. tough. I mean, it was he turned me, he got a gut wrench and turned me. I got on top, passivity, one type passivity, late in the match, exhausted, tired, sweaty. At the end of the fight, okay, here's your chance to turn the guy. Didn't do it. It was funny because the next year in the World Championships, moved up a weight class, wrestled the Russian Menshnikov, Aleksandr Menshnikov,
Yep.
multi-time world champion. In the semifinal, same scenario, absolutely same scenario. Tough, grueling match. He turned me for 2, and they put me down. And I gotta look. I got this match. I think there was like 20 seconds left on the clock. I got a 5-point lift on Menshnikov. It was like I was thinking this shit ain't gonna happen again. Like I'm not gonna not get my turn, And I got my lift on. I made it to the finals that year, but it was a grinding match. It was very tough, very physical, technical athlete. Like Marot was super technical, but he was also very, very physical, very tough fighter. I mean, just hell of a competitor.
What is the difference of styles between American wrestlers and Russian wrestlers?
Oh, Russian, typically American versus, you say, Eastern European guys, they are like very technical. They don't use a lot of energy. They don't waste energy at all. And I think the American style is like, hey, we're going to go in, we're going to beat you up, we're going to get you tired, we're going to be more physical, we're going to wear you out to beat you because we're probably not as technical in most positions.
Wow.
And that's probably the truth. This is one of their national sports. I mean, they love it. It's it's part of their culture. They don't have American NFL, they don't have NBA, they don't have MLB. I mean, this is the Olympics and wrestling, especially wrestling and judo, the combat sports are their absolute icons in Eastern Europe.
In the Karelin and Gardner also, it was that huge upset. Did you watch that in person?
Yeah, I was there.
Oh, wow.
I was there.
What were your thoughts on that?
I mean, you watched it. I mean, you saw it. I mean, this. He broke his lock,
Yeah.
I mean, right guy, right time. I mean, that's just how it goes sometimes.
Yeah, Brandon Slay also got the gold medal after Alexander Aleppo tested positive. That's a hard medal to accept.
Yeah, well, I know. I trained a lot with Brandon, actually. He was our freestyle, my freestyle weight class. Same, we trained in the parterre, the mat position a lot. He had an incredible gut wrench, and he got that by training with the Greco guys. Really, because the Greco-Roman athletes really understand the parterre position and how to turn guys with gut wrenches. You see freestyle, they do a lot more laced ankles, crotch lifts, where they're working the lower body. Brandon had just a solid gut wrench. He had a double leg and a gut wrench, and got him. I mean, those were his best 2 tools.
Did you ever wrestle with Joe Williams?
I never did. No.
Huh. So I know he was doing freestyle. You're doing Greco, same weight class.
I mean, we should have crossed paths. He was a couple years younger than me. So I when he was at Iowa, I don't remember why we never crossed paths.
I figured you did. I couldn't find anything online. September 20th, 1997. You fought in the IFC 4-man tournament. You got Mark Waters from the academy, and then you finish off in the finals against Travis Fulton.
Yeah, the Iron Man. I think he had like 100 fights at that time. I was looking at his record. I was like, dude, I think that guy had like over 100 fights, and that was like my second fight. My third fight. I was like, this guy over 100. He was fighting every weekend.
All right, so I ran into Travis shortly after this, a few years after this, And he claimed, I have not seen any video. I don't think it exists. He claimed that he tapped you out, but like there was like some confusion.
He wanted to keep on the fight. He had an arm bar on me and I was like shaking him off. Like, you know, I was like holding my own arm and I was like shaking him off. I don't know if that, yeah, he claims I tapped. He's like, you tapped. I'm like, well, and they stopped it if I tapped. Yeah, I was doing like the Randleman, you know, where he slammed the guy with the triangle choke, but instead of my arm, I was like, shit. I didn't know what I was doing. Stacking arm bar, popping. I was like posturing on the arm bar and like trying to shake him off it. Yeah, I was super green, man.
They're not even in the same weight class.
Who's that?
You're not in the same weight class as Travis, even back then.
Probably was no weight class.
Oh, that was those first 3 fights were no weight category. No, I think that tournament was under 200. I think that tournament was under 200. The first one was no, those were no bars fights. Those early ones, those were all the pre rules, you know, pre Zuffa, when Zuffa took over. Yeah.
Matt, at what point did you actually start saying, you know what, I'm going to train just for, I mean, not just for MMA, but I'm going to start doing some MMA training where you really dedicate some time to that sport?
Chris, right after the Olympic Games, we had, I got done in October and I was fighting in December in UFC in Japan.
Oh, man.
UFC Japan.
Yeah.
Jeff Blatnick was the announcer for the UFC. He was also the announcer at the Olympic Games. So after the game, I went up to Jeff. I was like, you know anybody that I should call? And he's like, yeah, I'll give you a number. Gave me a number. I called Bob Marowitz and got booked for a fight. Went over and moved back to Oregon immediately after the games and started training with Randy. Dennis Hallman, Jeff Monson was coming down. Benji Raddick was coming down. Started fighting. Dennis and I were both on that same card. I mean, I remember he was so calm and cool. He's like, I'm fighting this Matt Hughes guy. He's going to pick me up with a double. He's going to slam me and I'm going to catch an armbar on the way down. And I was like, okay, like, that sounds like a good plan. Like, you got a good plan, you know?
It's a plan.
He did it. He just
exactly what happened.
Matt level changed, ran a double leg, picked him up, slammed him, and here's Dennis hanging on to an armbar.
Okay, Chris, that is the famous event where we both got Jeff Monson and Dennis Hallman in our interviews, both talking about how someone in the UFC allowed them to go check their weight without anybody around. And they said the scale was kind of hokey. So Hallman stood up on the counter and jumped on it to break the scale. Do you remember that?
I remember saying that. Oh yeah.
Oh shit. No, I don't know. The scale broke probably.
I mean, they both of them freely admit that they intentionally broke the UFC weigh-in scale. So I definitely believe them. So Yoji Anjo is your UFC 29 opponent. For those keeping score at home, he's the guy that did the Gracie challenge and fought Hickson. Hickson has not released that tape. What was your experience with Anjo?
Well, my experience was I came in the ring and my only skill set at this point is a couple months of striking and a pretty good wrestling pedigree. And Yoji shoots in on a single leg and tries to take me down.
Probably not the smartest move.
I sprawled, front headlocked him, progressed to the mount position, and started landing elbows on his head.
Yeah, that was the first round knockout, and that was a pretty impressive entry into the UFC, especially with your Olympic background. After that, did you think you were going to go back to wrestling? Because I know you were kind of.
No, I was done. I was pissed off with USA Wrestling, the Olympic Committee, and just ready to take on a new chapter. But like I said, I wanted to wrestle in the United States for, the world championships. I never won a world medal. And but I decided, hey, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to move up a weight class. I was a kilo under my weight category. Just having fun, enjoying it, and competing.
You also, right after this, you went to Patriots, Greece, where you competed in the World Wrestling Championships against Mirkan Vakantadgadze.
Well said,
Yes. From Georgia.
Yeah, practicing one. And another world-class athlete.
Oh yeah, very tough guy.
Were you surprised that these Georgians weren't coming over into MMA at this time? I mean, they had the pedigree.
I was actually, I think it took a lot of the former Soviet Russian countries, maybe a decade before they really started pouring into the MMA world.
Surprising though, right?
A little bit. I don't know. Wrestling, man, it's a sport over in Europe where you can make a living.
Yeah.
There's guys in certain countries, it's like every time you win a medal, you get a new car and a house from the government. You get a pension from the government. You get health insurance. In the United States, we get none of that.
Speaking of which, your former teammate Jeff Monson is living in Russia with multiple academies in a very nice house.
And
a pension.
I haven't talked to Jeff for 5 years, 6 years.
Well, he's had another child.
Yeah, I heard that.
We did an interview with him. It was like 3 a.m. Russian time. We got to hear what a woman sounds like yelling at a person in that language because he was waking everybody up in the house.
Okay.
So I don't know, man. He admitted to using a Whizzinator in our interview as well. And I think Dennis Hallman said he shot urine into either his bladder in order to beat a piss test, and he didn't deny that either.
Yeah. Is there any surprise?
He's the best. He's the best.
Hey, now one thing we realized from dealing with Dennis Holman and Monson is you don't want to get on Dennis's bad side because he's gonna. When he put like Monson's furniture on his top, I'd leave that dude alone, man. I had nothing to do with it. Were you familiar with that guy?
I know the whole story. I know the whole story. Yes. Yeah, the car seat was removed in a bucket put in the place.
Yeah. Baby diapers stuff in the back street. No, I'm out. Don't mess with Dennis Holman, man. He's got
elaborate friend.
Yeah, I'm out.
God. Yeah.
You never had any experiences like
both. Have I? No.
I'm standing clear. That's smart.
But I was very fortunate to move back to the Northwest and have, Randy living in my hometown and training partners 2 hours away that would be willing to drive down. And, I went up and trained with Hume and Maurice Smith. And I immersed myself in this sport.
You guys had probably, without a doubt, you had like Militich, and you guys were definitely probably two of the best gyms in the country, maybe in the world at the time.
Yep.
What was it like in the gym at Team Quest at that time, man? Because like I said, best in the world, country, world, whatever you want to say, just unbelievable talent there.
You had to be ready for training. You had to be ready for training, and I think a lot of things we learned along the ways. It was like, let's go hard. And then we started to like, oh, maybe we should do some recovery days. Maybe we should incorporate some technique and some drilling, like as things progressed, it was like we started learning how to train better. But I think it was just like throw some gloves on, let's fight in the early days.
100%.
Well, at UFC 31, you fight Ricardo Almeida, and this was like, in my opinion, it was a huge deal because you got wrestling versus jiu-jitsu. I mean, two natural enemies in the wild. You got Renzo's top student and a Randy Couture protege.
Yeah. Ricardo's a tough fighter. Didn't want to get tangled up in his submission game, but I devised a pretty good strategy. That was actually right after they started instituting. So that was shortly after Zuffa bought it. And they started instituting some of these rules. That was the first fight. It was in Trump Taj Mahal. It was the first sanctioned UFC fight by an athletic commission.
Larry Hazard.
And,
yep.
Yeah, it was the first fight that was sanctioned by a commission. And there was a new rule in place that said you could not kick a fighter that was downed, one knee on the ground, hand on the ground. Now, Chris, I'm all about the old rules. I was stuck with those. I would have never changed any of them.
Me too.
I would take him down and then I would stay on my knees and do ground and pound. I wouldn't stand over him because then he could up kick me. And so he up kicks me a couple times and they give him a warning. And I'm about knocked out from one of these up kicks. And then they give him a penalty point the next time. They're like, okay, next time you do it, we're going to take a point. And immediately he goes for another up kick. And I'm like, okay, like this, he's like, next time you do it, we're going to disqualify you. Take him down again, start ground and pounding. And he's like, I need to get out of this fight. So I'm going to, it's either stay down there for another period and get punched or up kick your opponent again and get out. I mean, he wasn't winning the fight at this point.
Yeah.
3 rounds of takedowns and ground and pound.
All right, there's two things. One, like jiu-jitsu is all about the rule set. Oh, the wrestlers are starting to dominate. We've got a 3-year wrestler, so we're going to take takedowns away from the points in jiu-jitsu tournaments. The way you approached his guard, with him on his back, was very cutting edge. You got your points down, you controlled his feet, points down, and then you moved in. Nobody had done that up until that point.
Well, I knew the rules going in to the fight. I knew that we were going to have these new rules and I mean, there was a lot of new rules at that point. But that was one that I felt would be advantageous to my strategy because I knew I could get the fight to the ground, but I didn't want to like play in his guard game and do jiu-jitsu with.
But you had no fear of going into his guard. Like, what?
I didn't have a whole lot of other skill sets. What am I going to do? I mean, dude, he freaking kicked me so freaking hard. I'm a southpaw, and I lead my right leg, and he freaking inside kicked me, and I was like, oh, that's what a kick feels like in live competition. I'm like, I don't ever want to feel that again. And I'm like, if he decides he's going to freaking kick me one more time, I'm going to load up with the biggest left hand. That was one of my takedowns. It was just, he loaded up on that kick again because he saw that it hurt. And he went to load up on that side leg kick. And I just connected with a hard left hand, and that was the takedown. But yeah, I still remember what that kick felt like. Literally. Now that you're talking about this, I'm like, oh yeah, that dude freaking kicked me hard.
4-time national champion.
He just like, oh, I'm not sure if he broke a bone or tore all the muscles in there. That's gonna leave a mark tomorrow. I'm like, God.
Well, he was a 4-time national champion, and if you look at it on paper, wait, you're going to give me an Olympic wrestler, and I'm one of Renzo's top black belts. Like, he couldn't have been happier. He probably signed that fight faster than you did And then when he got there, he realized it was something different than what he had expected.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I was about taking whatever challenge was up. I mean, I'll take the fight. I would fought at 170 had they given time, and I'd let the brass at UFC know that, you know, I'm like, hey, if you give me a fight against you, I will go to 170.
Really?
I didn't want to. I mean, I fought at 167. I mean, I could make the weight. I just didn't want it. You guys gotten so much weight. You see how much weight these dudes are cutting now?
Oh, yeah. Crazy.
I mean, you were cutting a whole lot of weight. I mean, how much were you cutting?
Yeah, I'd walk around about 190, get down. It was an easy cut, really. I mean, most of the guys at the time were walking around about over 200 pounds that fought at 170. So I was a light, very light guy. I mean, once I start my training camp and get in there, I'd probably down about 185, 184, and then do a little 13-pound weight cut a couple of days before. It was easy.
Yeah. I mean, the guys are cutting so much weight. I didn't cut hardly anything.
Like Rumble Johnson, I saw once. He was like 210, 215. I'm like, geez, you're going to make 170? Yeah, he was a huge individual. Of course, he missed weight by a lot of weight, but I mean, he missed weight by like 13 pounds.
Just an accident. You miscalculated.
You didn't even try.
Yeah, he didn't try. Nope.
Yeah, I miscalculated on my food intake. I missed
hold
13.
on. Carry the one. Yeah, no, go on. So Matt, now you guys were talking about, you know, just one of the best gyms in the world right there. Is there anybody who would train there who was like unbelievably good that people wouldn't know of? Like who did really well there? Who was just, because there's always guys who were tougher in the gym. Can you think of anybody who was just tough as nails in the gym and didn't quite win as much in the fights as they thought, or just was anybody who was like?
Mike brought up Brian Schultz earlier. You know, really, I mean, in the room, like 155. I mean, I thought this kid was gonna, you know, hold a title. And we got, you know, we put him in a lot of good positions. He just didn't have a chin, you know. I mean, it was like, but I think it was more nerves, honestly, than it was didn't have a chin. But I mean, there's something about like the mental connection. You get hit and you think about it. Like, I think you can fuck with your own head to where like, oh, I'm out. Like, and he wasn't like, when he got knocked out, he wasn't like faking it. Like, I'm not saying that. I mean, just could not take you know, but everyone was saying it was more chin. Like, and it was like, oh, I don't know. But that was one guy. I mean, there was a lot of really talented young guys in there that didn't make it because of the lifestyle, man. You've got to live a pretty disciplined lifestyle. I mean, there's like Chris Leban, who, despite his lifestyle, had massive success. I mean, imagine. I mean, I was like, imagine if this guy actually freaking, you know, didn't drink, didn't party, you know, lived a, you know, a disciplined lifestyle. I mean, how successful he would be. And he was really successful as it was. So we had probably more of that, you know, guys that were very talented in the right environment, good coaching. You know, I mean, we had, you know, Robert Follis was our head coach at the time, but we had a lot of different guys in that room that you could learn from. You know, I mean, like, you know, Monson and Hallman, who we were talking about. I mean, Benji Raddick was coming down a lot, but we'd have, you know, people. I mean, you can't name a guy that was fighting at that time that didn't come in and share their knowledge with us because they wanted to come in and train. Let me spend a week at Team Quest, learn from you guys. And we would absorb as much information from those athletes as we could as well. I mean, it was a lot of collaborative sharing. Some of the guys that I, what's that?
Cyril Diabate worked out with you guys.
Oh yeah. I mean, everybody, bro. I mean,
Muay Thai world champion.
there's everything you can think of. Yeah. You know, but a couple of the guys that I specifically would travel to. So like I would do my fight camps in Portland with my team. But like when I wasn't in fight camp, that's when I would go like, okay, I'm gonna go spend 2 weeks with Militich. I'm gonna spend 2 weeks with BJ. I'm gonna go down and train with Hackelman and Chuck Liddell. You know, I mean, that was kind of how I, you know, was wanted to do this. I wanted to have my fight camps at home, you know, so I was really comfortable. I had my own sauna, I had my own meals, my, you know, my wife cooks for me, and you know, life is good, you know, and I'm in my gym. But when I wasn't in fight camp, because I know a lot of guys are like, I'm going to do fight camp somewhere else. But I always wanted to do fight camp at home. And then my training, you know, outside of my fight camps was like, let me go spend 2 weeks here, 3 weeks here, you know, and I could take my wife, you know, to Hawaii and my kids and be like, hey, let's go to Hawaii for 2 weeks. I'm just going to train, but you guys can hang out at the beach.
You mentioned Militich. You were up there. How brutal were those training sessions? They're kind of legendary here in the Midwest.
I mean, I would say they're pretty brutal training sessions, for sure, especially when I'd go out there, because I didn't want to work on wrestling. I wanted to work on stand-up stuff, you know? So, you know, when I would go somewhere, it was like, I want to work on a skill set that I don't have. I want to do striking with Militiches. I want to do jujitsu with BJ. I want to, you know, go down and, you know, fight with Chuck, stand up, you know? So I think those were always hard training sessions, because I was always putting myself in my weakest areas, because it's like, how am I going to improve? I'm not going here to show everybody how good I am in my skill sets. I'm here to improve my weak areas.
So in our interview with Pat Militich, he had mentioned like a king of the mat where the winner stays in the center, and you and Steve Rusk, you know, somebody probably was never on your radar, just had an absolute war where the gym stopped and watched it.
I had a lot of training sessions down there. Pat dropped me with a liver shot in one of those training sessions. That was the one takeaway I remember. I was like, you always see those liver shots. You're like, man, those gotta hurt. Like, guys, it doesn't look like much, but man, it just. And he heard the bell. He was like, ding, ding, ding. You know, the 10-second, and he freaking dug my body, and it was just like, man, I could have done that during the fight, you know? Yeah. So
I used to love the old days, like what you're talking about is now people go to a gym and everybody knows everything. The training is set. I mean, but back then you didn't know everything. You were trying to go piece it together, like you're talking about. I'm going to go to BJ's for jiu-jitsu. I'm going to go to Chuck's to learn more stand-up. Like nowadays, these gyms have everything, but you didn't have that back then. So you had to travel and learn, and you were just learning on the go. And like you say, okay, let's talk about this, and this works or this doesn't work. Like people were developing the sport that people now know. It was a fun time.
Yes, you are right, Chris. It was being innovative and collaborative, because like Randy would do the same thing. He'd go up and train, you know, with Maurice Smith, and you know, bring some stuff back. Hey, here's what we worked on. We're gonna incorporate this into our training. Like we would always be like, here's what I learned. I'm gonna bring it back to Team Quest, and I'm gonna incorporate this into my training. But like you said, brings up a funny memory for me when BJ was fighting Matt Hughes, and he called me up and he goes, will you be my wrestling coach? And I'm like, not a freaking chance. Am I going to be a wrestling coach, BJ? I go, I will run your entire camp, but I am going to be the head coach. And he's like, you want to be my wrestling coach? I'm like, no, because you're going to get the wrestling coach is going to want to get the fight to the ground. The boxing coach is going to want to knock the guy out. And the jiu-jitsu coach is going to want you to submit him. I'm like, we're not going to do that. We're going to put together an MMA camp, and we're going to talk about how we're going to win this fight. Not just, you know, but BJ was chaotic in his training. It was just like very like sporadic. He never systemized his training, and he was so successful. And it was like he really didn't have good training camps, because I would be out there training with him when he had camps going on, and I was just like, man, these are not the way I run a camp. I mean, these are not the way I'd run a camp. So when he asked me to prepare him for that fight, I was like, only if I'm your head coach. There's no way. He goes, okay, I'll call you back tomorrow. Oh, what's it going to look like? I said, well, it's going to be 8 weeks. 8 weeks? I've never done 8 weeks. I'm like,
it's already
well,
complaining.
BJ, it's not really 8 weeks. I mean, like, because we got a taper week. We're going to be in Vegas 1 week. Like, we're going to go back to Hawaii and taper. So that's really only 6 weeks. I go, you're going to come out here for 1 week of evaluation. So honestly, like, it's like 5 weeks, really.
And talk him into it. Okay, 5 weeks.
So yeah. So he comes out to Portland. I'm like, all right, you're gonna go to Colorado for 2 weeks. You're gonna wrestle Greco-Roman. That's all you're gonna do. You're gonna go wrestle Greco. So he goes out there, trains with one of my former coaches, Olympic champion Momir Pekovic, and he comes back, and we end up putting together a game plan and going back to Hawaii, tapering, and head out to Vegas. And 33 seconds into the fight, he ends up choking him out. It was a fun.
I was about to say, whatever you did worked wonders, because he looked phenomenal that fight. You know what I mean? What just happened? I mean, I thought he was going to get killed. I'll be honest. I thought when I saw that fight, I was like, 55-pounders fighting the best man. Why are they doing this? I had no idea why. And they beat him like that. I was shocked.
Did he get
one other fight I got to work with him was the GS fight, that split decision. I don't know. I don't know if you remember the fight, but I still to this day think he won the fight. But there was one thing we were talking about. It was BJ likes to play the game with his back against the cage. He uses that knee to create space, take away space, a lot of dirty boxing on the cage. And I just said, I'd like you to spin him around and pressure him against the fence. I just don't know if the judges recognize how much damage you're doing there, BJ.
Well, I mean, I've had similar fights. And to me, like what they always talk about, in my opinion, they say whoever's doing the most damage, whoever's doing the damage is winning. And I'm like, okay, if he's pushing you in the fence, he's not doing any damage. Even if you're landing a few punches, you're doing a little damage. But that's not typically how they judge it. It's usually the guy in control's winning. Control. Even though they say damage, if they talk to you about what criteria-wise is damage, but that's never how it's really done. That's why I've seen a lot of split decisions like that. But you're right. They always go for the guy in control. But go ahead.
Yeah.
Did Hallman get any looks with BJ when he was up there? Because, I mean, he had the keys to beat Hughes.
Yeah. No, I brought Dennis up a few different sessions for sure.
Wow,
yeah.
That's smart. That's friggin' smart. Chris, his MMA history, we haven't even really touched on it yet. But one of the important things is like what takes place behind the scenes. Obviously, that's a big story. You witnessed Charles Bennett knocking out Wanderlei Silva backstage at Pride.
I did see that.
What was the buildup behind this? Like,
okay. So Wanderlei is in the back. Bennett already fought. He'd already had his fight. He was in the back, blasting his boombox and just being a jackass. I mean, just general jackass. And him and Wanderlei's jiu-jitsu coach get into a little scrap. And Bennett gets triangle choked and he's unconscious. And that ends. And he's still being the same guy. He won't shut up, and Wanderlei just kind of like pushes him like with his foot. Like Bennett's on his knees. He's like doing like a little pose on his knees. And Wanderlei like just kind of pushes him like, dude, get the fuck out of here. Like, go away. and he like falls back, and as he falls, he jumps up and just freaking hits him with a freaking right hand. Just throws a big old right, knocks him out. Like the room clears, like there's chaos. And it's just like, what the hell just did I see?
And Wanderlei hasn't fought yet. Wanderlei is getting ready to fight.
He's got to go fight in like 2 fights.
No way.
And that was the problem, was he was trying to get ready for his fight, you know, like mentally just kind of like, I'm warmed up, I'm ready, like I'm up in 2 rounds, like there's 2 more fights ahead of me, I'm up. And yeah, and they end up dragging him back out there, and he ends up fighting.
Who did he fight? Who did he fight?
Ricardo Almeida.
It's a tough fight, man.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Wow.
Did Charles run from the dressing room, or was he just like it?
Yeah. After he knocked him out, he freaking got the hell out of there.
Yeah, it's a smart move. It's a smart move.
Yeah.
Your only move, really. It's really your only
move. A lot of Brazilians. And like I said, his jiu-jitsu coach had already triangle choked him to sleep. So
Chris, when I went down to Tampa for the BKFC, Wanderlei and Verdum were there, and they were in the BKFC ring, and Bennett was in the audience, and they were both in the ring pointing at Bennett. Like, I know they beat up Bennett later on, but it wasn't enough. Like,
how many years later?
This is like 2 years ago. Yeah.
They still have it out for the game.
It still isn't over. It's still not over yet. Phil Baroni, your UFC 34 opponent. I don't think you've gotten under anybody's skin like him, that at least that I have seen. Like, you had his number.
Yeah, I think there was a little bit of gamesmanship, but there wasn't the media outlets there is today. And I think Phil was a really good promoter, and I think that it was like trying to build that hype around this fight for both of us was more what it was. I think I may have definitely got under his skin in real life, but
oh yeah.
But I was thinking, hey, you're gonna talk shit about me? Like, okay, I get it. Like, let's do this. Like, let's build this hype.
Here's your modeling pictures. Here's some Daisy Dukes that you took pictures in.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Oh wow.
I mean, to find that stuff, that's just gold. I mean, that's just gold. To find that the clips of him modeling Daisy Dukes, you're like, oh my God, I gotta release this somehow. Absolutely.
Wow. I will say, out of all of your opponents, Phil Baroni brought the best out in you in terms of, like, I watched that. I'm like, man, Matt Lindland's one of the most exciting fighters in the entire roster. I couldn't have said that with Anjo, even though it was a dominant victory. But those Phil Baroni fights, oh my God, were they incredible.
Thank you. I mean, I felt like I was a pretty entertaining fighter.
Yeah.
And, but I think that the word was, oh, Matt's just going to take you down and lay on top of you. And it was like, I don't think that's what I'm trying to do out there. I'm definitely trying to, finish these fights. Yeah. I don't want to stay out there any longer than I have to.
Yeah, exactly.
What was your relationship like with Phil?
I think it progressively grew. I'm very, I was fond of the guy. I thought, he was, he's a sad guy, I mean, well, now he's not now you know what's going on in Mexico. Like, that's, I kind of felt a little sad for the guy, honestly, once I got to know him better. He'd actually came out to Portland, trained at our gym. Like I said, everybody you can think of. I mean, he spent a long time out at our gym. Yeah, I thought he was coming out for a week. I was like, I got an extra room. You can stay at my house. And then he's like, you don't have cats, do you? And I'm like, oh, I got cats. Like, I got cats. You don't want to stay here. He's like, because I'll die. I'm like, shit. Had I known that, I would have freaking
Yeah, a bunch of cat.
put my gloves in some freaking cat fur, like that's figured out. He's like, yeah, I'll die if you have a cat. I'm like, well, you ain't staying in my house.
Hey, Matt, did you ever? I remember at one point I fought a guy in WBC named JT Taylor, and he was just talking crazy to me for no reason. Like I had to cancel a fight because the UFC called me, and then he gets online and starts on the internet calling me a coward and a piece of shit. I was like, who is this guy? So I was like, I'm fighting this guy now, and I submitted in like 2 minutes. It's like, that's all you got. But I mean, I heard him start talking trash to like Holman and you. I was like, what's wrong with this guy, man? He wasn't. What happened with him?
Have you ever seen the video on YouTube?
It's amazing.
No.
Oh my God, Chris!
I'll check it out.
It's amazing.
It's a classic. I think if you just type his name and my name, yeah, no, he just didn't like me. I mean, it's hard to
imagine.
Me neither. But so he was like wanted to fight me, and I was like, okay, let's do it in my promotion, man. Let's do it in my promotion. We'll build it up. We'll create the hype. Next fight, come down to Portland, like we'll get in the ring. We'll freaking bump it up. And so I've got some of the footage from that on this video I released. But then he sends me a fax. Sends me a fax week of the fight. And it was like, doctor's note, JT is injured. He cannot fight. And so I'm just like, okay, whatever. So I did a promo video. Hey, sorry fans, we had a fight against, I ended up fighting, who did I end up fighting there? From freaking Washington. Oh my God, it's going to drive me nuts. I'm going to have to freaking look it up. Sport fight, Mike. Who did I fight?
I got WFA. Was it after the IFL, correct?
No, I don't know when it was. It was a sport fight.
Ray's MMA, Nico Vitelli.
So anyways, I ended up rescheduling.
Landon Showalter. Landon
Showalter. Good dude from freaking Washington. Tough guy, just a real journeyman fighter. And I'm like, could you come down and fight this weekend? JT pulled out. He's like, yeah, I'll come down. And so, I had to let the crowd know, hey, JT didn't show up. So I do this coward of the county thing. And it was really funny. And then he's like, I want to fight you in real life. I'm like, dude, we already booked a fight. He's like, no, I want to fight you. I'm like, all right, well, I don't know, come by the gym. I'll fight you. But let me know, and then he's just showed up one day. And then I was filming an instructional video and he just showed up. He's like, I'm here. I'm like, bro, I got to fight next week in the UFC. It's not good time. This isn't good timing. We scheduled a promotion. I told you, let me know, come by the gym. We can hash it out, bro.
Wait, Chris. At this point, I'm sorry, Matt. Matt, because he's doing an instructional video. He's in the corner. Matt looks at the video and he goes, I think someone needs to call 911. He's having a mental health emergency. It was unbelievable. He believed that you shut his show down. His MMA event down. That's what he believed. You had your show in Reno. He had his going, and the commissions got involved, shut his show down, and he said Matt Lindland did this. I don't know how you got on this crazy guy's radar, or either of you two for that fact, but I think
I don't either.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
It's amazing. Gonna like you. Not everyone's gonna like you. That's
no. Yeah. When you fought Pat Militich at UFC 36, it was literally two mega gyms. You got the team captain from Militich, and then you got yourself, who, I mean, you're still figuring it out, but you're at the cream of the crop with Team Quest. Did you realize how big that fight was when it went down?
Well, I mean, I was fighting a guy that was a world champion. He moved up a weight class, and not by choice either. That was kind of the Dana, I want to get rid of you playing.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, okay, we're done with you. You've been a world champ. You represented our organization, you know, with class and you know, I mean, Pat's a freaking icon, you know, and so it's like, I mean, I recognize it was a tough fight. I mean, I thought it was, you know, a really cool opportunity, you know, to go have an opportunity to fight a former world champion and a legend like Pat Militich. And he's a great guy. Like, if you know Pat well, he's just
brilliant.
Yeah, brilliant. He's a solid individual. So yeah, I mean, it's like, I think it was a big deal at that time. I don't know if the rest of the world realizes what a big deal that was.
Fucking huge. Yeah, you stop him in the third round. Pat's body was falling apart at this time. You could tell by his gait that he was shot, but he was fighting at his best. Like, he was finishing people at this point. Like, I don't know why the UFC just didn't like him, but I think that happens with everybody. I mean, how would you explain your relationship with Dana White?
Oh, I mean, he's a demonic individual. Like, he's definitely possessed by demons. I mean, the demons are real. I mean, demons are real, and he's
fallen angels exist for sure.
He's
You're doomed to walk the earth, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just not my type of dude, to be quite honest. Like, not.
Okay.
I mean, that's it.
Where would you say your relationship? Well, even like Randy, yourself, Henderson, not so well. Even Henderson with John Jones. Where would you say your relationship went south with him?
With Dana?
Yes.
I don't even know, man. I can tell you the fight, the first time they fired me was when I was supposed to, I was fighting Joe Dirksen, and then they put me on an undercard, even though if I win this fight, you're getting a title against Rich Franklin. You win this fight, you're getting a title shot against Rich Franklin. I mean, he said that publicly, and then puts me on an undercard like the day before the show, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm getting a title fight next show. But what happened was I had a sponsor. I made $15,000 for that fight and $15,000 to win. I had a sponsor that was paying me $30,000, and showed up that week, and there was an addendum to my existing contract. Hey, I need you to sign this. I said, it's fight week. I'll get this to my attorney and we'll look at it and we'll get back to you. But I'm not going to sign this. Well, the addendum was, my sponsor was a gaming company, and you couldn't have a gaming company because it was competing against MGM. And I know. And then they went and had gaming companies. I know it was just bullshit. And so they wanted me to do this addendum to my contract. And I was like, I'll get to that next week. You know, it's fight week right now. I'm kind of focused on what I'm doing. And
it's no rush here. Right.
It's not a priority for me, you know, and then that was their justification for releasing me from my contract.
Wow.
The first time. You know, and then Dana tried to hire me again.
But you only wore that T-shirt at weigh-ins. It's not as if you walked out.
That's true. But I called my sponsor, and that's what I go, listen, they want to do this shit. And he's like, you know what? Just wear it during the week, wear it at weigh-ins, you know, like wherever you can, you know. And I was like, yeah, that's cool. Like, I'll just wear Team Quest fight shirts in the ring. Yeah,
that's incredibly understanding, especially of the sponsor. $30,000 is a shitload of money today.
Yeah. So, yeah, that was kind of the deal. But you know, he tried to hire me again for that TV show, the Ultimate Fighter. Travis Luter ended up winning that season, and I'd already fought Travis before that happened.
Did they want you on that season as a coach?
Yeah, they wanted me on that season, and I just couldn't fucking do it. You know what though? I go, no. And Dana's like, dude, just come out to Vegas for the weekend. We're going to do all your medicals. Well, shit, Chris, you remember how much that shit costs, right? To have the head scan, the CT, like you fight in California or Nevada, you're dropping like $5,000 on medicals. And you're hoping you get 2 fights that year because it's going to at least
make it work.
Be able to amortize it. Right. So I'm like, all right, you're going to pay for all my medicals. You're going to fly me to Vegas and put me up in a hotel for a couple nights. All right. So I went out there, did all my medicals. Now I'm good for a year in, every state. And I'm just like, not interested, man.
Well, I mean, you got some great stuff out of it. I mean, you fought for Affliction, man. I mean, what was it like? That was a great organization. They overpaid people. Obviously, great thing. They only put on 2 fights because of it. But I mean, what do you think you're doing with Affliction?
I mean, I thought it was great. They put on quality events. I fought in St. Petersburg. I fought Fedor Emelianenko. After the fight, went over to Putin's palace, hung out with him and Bernicelli. I mean, it was like, experience of a lifetime kind of thing, I was the #1 middleweight in the world at that time, not in the UFC. And I got to fight the #1 heavyweight in the world.
How close were you? Because I know Miguel used to be on the show, but I know he's told me in the past that he received a phone call from you in regards to the rope grab by Fedor. And he said, man, I know there was an attorney on that other line with Matt, and they were thinking about suing us. No?
No. You know what the official actually said in a public interview, in a magazine interview. He said, I was afraid for my life to make that call.
Troy Wah was
I was afraid for my life to make that call in Russia. It was like, okay.
Legit.
12 times you grabbed the rope. No, I didn't have an attorney. I mean, I have an attorney. I didn't. No.
I remember receiving that phone call right after. Yeah, Lindland's suing me. He's 100% suing me. He's like, I don't know how. I don't know why. Good luck getting something out of me. Like one of those conversations.
Never even entered my mind.
Okay.
It's part of the fight game, man. It's just poor judging, not making the right calls, whatever,
Let's talk about an instance, and I know we're running late for you, Matt. I apologize. Nate Quarry, he fought a world title fight against Rich Franklin. He trained at Team Quest. You were not in the UFC at this time. Was it difficult for you to help train him?
Not at all.
#1 guy in the world, not in the UFC, and your teammate.
I didn't think he was ready for that fight, but I wasn't his coach. I was a training partner at that time for him. I just ran into Nate 2 weeks ago. My cut man was doing a book signing and a poetry reading, and I ran into Nate. I know.
Interesting.
Haikus.
My cut man's a poet. He writes a lot of funny poems. It's his creative outlet. I don't know. So Tom invited me, and I wasn't surprised to see Nate there. Actually, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. See Nate. He seems like he's doing a lot better. Like he seems like he's here. He's just. He was just kind of an angry guy for a while. I think he had some mental things going on where I think he really thought I should have been upset. I was like, good for you, man. That's awesome. Like I don't know. I'm happy for you, bro. Did I think he was ready personally? No, but I wasn't going to tell him that. I was going to help him prepare for the fight best I could.
Well, how were those training sessions? I heard they were pretty brutal.
What with Nate?
Yeah.
In what way? I was
I
never trying to hurt him or anything. I mean,
Okay. Well, here, you got to remember, man, the internet. You know,
Yeah.
you can't, it's the fucking internet. So the
Yeah.
fucking internet that's how we're describing it, was saying that the claims were Matt's trying to injure Nate in practice. I remember when all this went down.
No,
Okay.
nothing. Nothing. And if that were ever the case, it would be like, okay, I won't spar with you. I mean, I'll light roll with you or whatever, but I won't spar with you. I mean, I don't want to hurt somebody going into a fight or anything like that. And I wasn't in the UFC, so why would I care? I was actually making more money. I mean, I made more money everywhere else than the UFC. That was my worst paying promotion.
A lot of people's common theme right there, I've noticed.
I mean, that was my worst paying promotion. It was like, oh, you released me? Oh, this kind of sucks. Okay. Oh, wow. I'm going to get paid more fighting here. This is great.
So
I was a prize fighter that's what I did for a living. I fought for the biggest prize. It wasn't fighting for this organization. I think that's a bit of a misnomer that everyone like, oh, you're not in the UFC. It's like, that's not like a bad thing. If you're getting paid more to fight elsewhere and doing what your chosen profession is. And I enjoyed what I did for a living.
Well, what I think people don't realize is a lot of people need the UFC to gain the popularity and the people understanding who you are to get paid more. You know what I mean? So people need the UFC to gain that recognition. If you already had it, you don't need it. You already got the recognition, so you can just go to the end game and getting the money. That's what you want. And it's not about being the UFC. It's about getting that payday at the end. And usually the UFC provides it, but it didn't need to provide it for you because you already had it.
Yeah, that's exactly it. But no, I honestly, I've never had any bad feelings for Nate. I mean, he did call a meeting one time and he told me what I was going to have to do to get him to stay at the gym. And I was like, okay, like, you want to leave the gym? All right. He's like, no, you don't understand. And I'm like, no, I think I get it. Like, you want me to provide you with more services than money you're bringing in. You want me to spend money on you and you're not bringing money in to me. Like, it doesn't make sense, Nate. Like, financially, this isn't a business deal I want to get into. Like, if you want to leave the gym, like, I wish you the best, bro. And he's like, no, dude, you don't understand. I'm famous. I'm like, okay, I get it. You're famous. Like that's cool.
How's that make me money? Yeah.
Right.
I mean, this is a business at the end of the day. Everything's a business. I don't get it.
So one of the greatest fights for the unsanctioned era, like if people want to understand the no holds barred unsanctioned era, Matt Lindland cornered Chris Leban when he fought Brian Sleeman in the WEC. This is on Fight Pass. It is possibly one of the greatest fights that has ever taken place in MMA history. Will you mind giving us the cornerman view on what took place?
Oh my God, Chris freaking kicks him. Well, he's southpaw orthodox, so you know how that works. The leg comes up in the middle and lands in the crotch. Immediately goes back. Okay, take a second. Go to your corners. All right. Immediately comes back with another freaking ball kick. Immediately. Leban just fucking kicks his kid in the freaking groin twice. The guy's
was about to get knocked out. He was also about to lose.
No, he goes, I'm out. I'm leaving. He walks out of the cage and everyone's calling him a pussy. He's like, you're a pussy. He turns around, comes back in the cage. They restart the fight. He's down on, he gets fucking dropped. He's down on one knee, completely down. This kid comes in for the freaking kill shot, and all of a sudden, like, he's resurrected. Leban's like down on one knee, one hand, one knee. He's like, can't even freaking barely hold himself up. And the guy comes in to finish the fight, and Chris just like resurrects and comes up and throws that left hand just wham, drops him. Fight's over.
Yeah.
It's crazy. They like walked out of the cage. They stopped
the crowd chanting, "Let them fight, let them fight." Yeah, the crowd dictated
this fight.
The rematch. It's on Fight Pass. It is mandatory watching material. Phenomenal.
I would agree. It's definitely worth a watch.
You also cornered Couture when he fought Hizzo on UFC 31. This is the match where Hizzo lost. It was very controversial. Hizzo, Dan Henderson kind of came into the ring on a doctor check, extended the break in between. Randy gets a takedown and kind of rides out the controversial third round. Do you remember?
Yeah, this was the second fight, right? The first
fight.
Randy, this is the first fight?
Randy won the first round dominantly,
and then
gassed out.
I mean, there was two fights. There was the one where he won was very close decision. But the first time, I thought it was the first time they fought where Pedro just freaking tore his leg up.
Both. Well, Pedro definitely did that, but the issue is it was a bad stoppage with John McCarthy saying, no, the doctor's got to check Randy. And rather than having a quick check, Henderson comes in through the door, goes underneath, brings Randy down. Randy gets like an extra 45 seconds to a minute, of break time. So it's like an actual, in between round. And
little injury time.
And Hizzo, he cried in our interview talking about that. He's just like, I don't talk about this fight. Yeah, he had to go to therapy. He said it changed him. It absolutely changed him, not having his hand raised.
That was a tough dude, man. He had some nasty leg kicks.
Yeah.
I was telling you about that leg kick that freaking Almeida gave me. Well, freaking Randy ate about 80 of those in that one fight. His leg from his freaking groin to his toes was black for like 3 months. For like 3 months, his leg was black. Like they thought it was like damaged. Like I don't know if that thing's gonna ever recover. Like
man,
it did. But yeah, it was insane how bad that was.
All right, we're coming up on 2 hours. Why don't we close with
we
Evan
gotta
Tanner?
go, man.
Yeah, let's close with Evan Tanner. We've taken up a shitload of your time. And dude, I've got a fuckload of more wrestling questions. Unfortunately, I did not get to them. So
some other time, Mike.
Evan Tanner.
Go
ahead, man. Why don't here right now, people, it's unfortunate that like when somebody goes through addiction, you're at their worst. And you kind of got to see Evan through various stages of his life.
Yeah, I mean, he was definitely just kind of a lost soul. I mean, he moved out to Portland to get like a change of, you're like, okay, I want to change things up. I want to get in a fresh start. I've been drinking a lot and I'm going to move out here. And he just never fixed himself, man. I mean, the guy would have booze in his gym bag, I mean,
Wow.
that's a tough way to live your life. And, I felt bad for the guy because he was, again, like, imagine how good he could have been if that guy didn't have that addiction. Because he was really tough. He was a great training partner, awesome guy to have in the room. I mean, incredible person. I mean, like really, really introverted individual, but very, very intelligent, highly intelligent, well-read guy. But just couldn't stop the demons, I mean, there was times where I got called out on suicide watch, like, hey, Evan's gonna kill himself. Could you come over here and help him out? It was just like, yeah, this is hard. This, I'm not what I signed up for, like this is my training partner, but I don't want to see a guy die and kill himself. And that's ultimately what he ended up doing. I mean, I think that was definitely a suicide mission to go out in the desert with a bottle of booze and no water. on a motorcycle. But I'd been down those roads with him before where, hey, I need you to come over here. Evan's, gonna die tonight if we don't help him. So, I'd show up. I'd leave my family and, midnight or whatever time it was and meet him down at the Sandy River because he was going to jump in the frickin' Sandy in the middle of winter and end it that way. I mean, I don't know. That'd be a tough way to go. Hypothermia.
Man, what a messed up thing. I mean, I remember my first time going to Japan and fight, he was on the card and just being around him and just looking up to him. I was like, man, this guy's a monster. And he just, in talking to him many times, he's a great guy, man. I mean, I really enjoyed being around him. I thought he was, just fighting UFC with him. I thought he was a great guy, very good individual. It just, man, yeah, like you said, the demons, you just never know what people are going through and how to help people. You just, I don't know how you can sometimes, man, but just wish you could have got things turned around. Cause like I said, great individual as far as I ever, every time I talked to him, it was a great conversation, good person.
Yeah. And another guy, Robert Follis, another guy,
another suicide. I mean, that's
your boxing coach.
I mean, he was our MMA coach. I mean,
MMA coach. Yeah.
He was our, strategist, game planner. He had the whistle, at practice. I mean, that was Robert. Loved his role. I don't know what happened. I mean, he grew up in the Jehovah Witness church and was always struggled with that. He always struggled with that. There was like a lot of things happened to him as a child, and I don't know all of the details. And I'm sure he shared a lot, but it all kind of sounded like it stemmed from that Jehovah Witness stuff. And again, I mean, we were talking about demons earlier. I mean, I think these cults are demonic. They're false.
Nate Quarry grew up in a Jehovah's Witness. Got disowned by his family. Yeah.
Yeah. And they both had talked about that because they both had left that church, years ago. And
Mark Schultz just left the church as well.
The Mormon church? Did he just leave the Mormon church?
He left. Yeah, Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And not only did he leave, he went on like a press campaign against them.
Okay. I didn't know that because he was a pretty strong practicing Mormon for a long time. Yeah, that's cool.
Dude, Schultz is one of my favorite guys, man. I'm not even gonna lie. I'm like any knowledge I get from the Schultz brothers, I'm addicted to it. I'm like, I want it. So, but Matt, Chris, why don't we sign out? This guy's giving us 2 hours of his
really appreciate all your time. Great stories, man. You've been one of the most entertaining guys to watch. I love the old school era, man. Just you were an NHB guy, and that's what I always remember, man. NHB, that's when I first started. That's what it was. Everything was going, and where the sport comes from, a lot of people don't understand it, but that's why we have people like you on here to share that knowledge and tell these stories. It's fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, guys, and good to see you, Chris.
You too,
you
bud.
good, Matt. Nice meeting you, brother. Take care.
All right, you bet, Mike. Bye.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a conclusion to the Matt Lindland interview. We had Dan Henderson, Matt Horwich, Chris Leban. We've got those 3. We're going to try to tie in Ed Herman and a few other Team Quest guys. Ryan Schultz is definitely on our list as well. We kind of go at teams and groups, and Team Quest is on our radar right now. First and foremost, want to send big thank yous. Six Demon Bag, that's what he posts as. He goes on Reddit, deals with all that little red tape and all the ridiculousness over there, and he posts our product. Every single time he's allowed to post our product over there, we see a significant growth in regards to the episode that he put forward. Six Demon Bag, dude, I know you're out of Oregon, dude. Sincerely appreciate all your hard work. Hong Kong Fooey. He is my favorite poster on mixedmartialarts.com. If you go to MMA.tv and then go to the Underground Forum, you will see him all over there. In my opinion, should be the head moderator. John Morgan, please step down from your position and let that check roll Hong Kong Fooey's way. That's my guy. All right. Now, if you guys want to help the podcast grow, iTunes, you can leave, or Spotify, you can leave a 5-star review. And on iTunes, you can actually type some things. Anything you guys write, no matter what it is, you've got my word. I will literally read it right here, but it has to be 5 stars. KJV Bible Reader, hands down, one of the best podcasts. Thank you so much. We've also got great hosts and guests, great questions. This is for the true MMA fans. Best MMA podcast out there by Sub Hunter 84. And then great show. Y'all keep history alive and get some great stories out of your guests. That is my child in the background. Though good and sometimes tough questions. And she's now moving my lights in order to get attention. And you are the Sherlock Holmes of combat sports. That is by DM11. Joey G wrote, great podcast. Questions are serious. Gives you a true insight in the early days of MMA. All right. So I need like 200 of those in order to kind of make a dent in regards to the combat sports, like other podcasts that we compete with. So far, we've got 45. Guys, please, anything you can do to do that. I can't explain to you how much that helps us. Now, Matt Lindland, his wrestling is like, I've got like about 3 more pages of questions just on what took place in wrestling as kind of like some of the controversies, I'm using air quotes there, in regards to what took place in MMA, whether it's, you know, the fake tap or, you know, some of the other issues that took place and like Bodog, they pale in comparison to the amount of like notable things that took place in his wrestling career. And that guy was like the ultimate competitor. Mark Schultz protege in regards to how he handled himself. He's certainly somebody that I admire, like as a competitor. Like he's not your true fighter type, but made the jump and certainly made big waves. So we're going to continue tracking these guys down from Team Quest. I got a dialogue happening with Ed Herman right now. I think Ryan Schultz would be another fantastic ad. We also never touched on really much like with Evan Tanner, other than that brief statement. Matt cornered Matt a few times. Like those are things that are going to come up in our follow-up interview with him. But if you guys like this, you guys got to share it, push it forward. Please get on our Instagram. If you want to help out with timestamps, whatever business you have, I'll plug it in the bio. Give you a thank you in the bio. We need timestamps done for some of our old episodes. So if you guys want to help join us in this journey to document mixed martial arts history from the eyes of the people that participated in it, it'd be greatly appreciated. Thank you. We're growing. We're trying to keep put a little bit more air in that balloon, and one day it's going to explode. And the only way that happens is with people such as yourself. So thank you so much, guys, and I'll see you guys next week.
Check out the full interview on iTunes, Spotify, and all major podcast platforms.